Welcome back to the deep dive. We're plunging again into some really deep waters today. Energy, spirituality, and, well, the challenges we all face in this modern world.
Indeed.
We were honestly blown away by the response to our last discussion on Kundalini energy and psychosis. So many of you reached out, shared personal stories, sent emails.
Yes, and I personally saw a real uptick in session requests. It clearly touched a nerve.
It really did. So just to quickly recap for anyone new joining us, Kundalini.
Right. Think of it as a vital energy. It originates from a source deep down in your pelvis.
Yeah.
And its natural state is to circulate, to flow freely through your whole system. It enlivens you.
Okay. And our mission, our goal for this deep dive is to see how understanding this inner energy connects to something you call radical spirituality in your book, De Tweede Geborgte. Especially in today's world, with the information overload, the constant distractions, we're all searching for something authentic, right?
Yeah.
For well-being.
Exactly. And this energy, it's powerful, but it needs, let's say, conscious handling. If it's mishandled maybe through a physical shock, like a fall on the tailbone, or a sudden emotional trauma.
Or even certain practices.
Yes, precisely. Incorrect spiritual practices. Things like maybe superficial tantra courses without real guidance. Or perhaps pranayama practiced fanatically by teachers who don't fully grasp the energetics.
What happens then?
Well, the energy can surge upwards too fast, too powerfully. And that can lead to what we might term manic psychosis. It feels like going through the roof, you lose your inner anchor.
Wow.
Fundamentally, this energy is seeking something. It wants a conscious connection between our own inner source and that larger cosmic source. That's its natural inclination.
Which brings us right to that term from your book, radical spirituality. Now, I imagine for some listeners, the word radical, it might sound a bit intense, extreme, maybe?
It can, yes.
Yeah.
And it's important to clarify, radical here isn't about extremism or being fanatical. It points to a deep, a really profound longing for inner freedom, but freedom in the transcendent sense.
So not just freedom to, go on holiday or buy nice things.
Not just that, no. It's more fundamental. It's freedom from our inhibitions, freedom from those limiting self-perceptions, the fears, the unconscious stuff that holds us back. There's a British philosopher, Jules Evans, who wrote a fascinating book, The Art of Losing Control. He argues that if society doesn't offer healthy ways to experience, uninhibited states,
People find other ways.
people will seek them out in weirder ways, as he puts it. He mentions things like misuse of certain substances or even, in extreme cases, destructive acts. Think of certain groups seeking a kind of twisted freedom from control through violence.
That's quite a thought. It makes you wonder, could things that seem totally separate, like someone gaming for hours or binging Netflix, or even at the far extreme, horrific outbursts of violence, could they somehow stem from a similar place?
Well,
Like an underlying emptiness, a need for fullness, or that freedom from inhibition you mentioned?
I think it's a valid question to ask. Recognizing that underlying dynamic, that shared human need is really key. But here's the hopeful part. This deep freedom from inhibition. It can actually be found in a very gentle, very calming way.
How so?
It doesn't require external drama or extremes. It grows from cultivating an inner state of being. It's not about following external rules, prescriptions, norms, written or unwritten. It's an inside job, a quiet revolution, if you will.
That really hits home, doesn't it? That feeling of unfreedom in daily life. Most of us know it. Not saying what you really think or holding back how you feel, just going along. It creates this internal friction, this suffering, feeling like you're not quite yourself.
Yeah.
I remember a client who kept saying, I'm so afraid of losing myself. Honestly, my thought was often, but you already seem lost, caught in that very fear.
That perfectly captures a distinction made by Leo Hartang in his book Ontwaken du Room, Awakening in the Dream.
Yeah.
He talks about two very different kinds of freedom. There's freedom for your ego. That's the freedom to just, carry out your plans, avoid what you don't like, satisfy desires, standard stuff.
Right.
But then there's freedom from the ego. That's much deeper. It's about being sincere, upright, doing what you're essentially meant to do, as my own meditation teacher, Hedy Dreyer, often stressed.
Yeah.
Very different directions.
One outward, one inward.
Speaking of things reinforcing us, sometimes in unhelpful ways.
Yeah.
There's this really concerning modern example popping up. Warnings from mental health professionals about people having, spiritual discussions with ChatGPT.
Oh, yes. That's a serious concern. And it ties right back to this need for inner grounding.
How so?
ChatGPT, well, It's designed to be agreeable, isn't it? It tends to confirm whatever the user's thinking. What a good question. Yes, I can help with that. That kind of thing.
Right. It wants to please.
Exactly. Now, imagine someone who's already feeling unwell, maybe a bit confused, ungrounded, this kind of interaction. It can actually reinforce them into psychosis.
Because there's no real challenge, no pushback. Precisely. It lacks genuine human connection, critical thinking, and crucially, that inner sense of values that a human guide or a solid spiritual practice provides. It becomes an echo chamber, not an anchor.
And values are key here.
Absolutely. If you ask most people, what are the highest values, they'll usually say love first, then truth, beauty, freedom, justice. My book advocates learning to live from love instead of just self-interest. That provides the inner compass.
Which seems so needed now. We've kind of shifted from, say, book religions to almost an idolatry of the individual, haven't we? There's often this lack of verticality. A connection to deeper values seems missing sometimes. Could this radical spirituality offer a new foundation for what Hedy Dreyer and Graf Durkheim called the new human for a new earth?
That is precisely the vision, yes. Durkheim defined this new human as someone consciously anchored in their being, someone capable of expressing this anchoring in freedom through how they know and shape and love all from within.
As opposed to
the old human, who lives mainly from unconscious desires, impulses, reactions. This conscious anchoring, this inner foundation, is really the key to navigating our times and building something better.
Okay, let's dive into that. Being anchored in our being. You talk about different bodies or layers of energy and consciousness. Can you walk us through them, starting with the physical? That's where most of us start, right?
Absolutely. The physical body is always ground zero. You can only really get to know these other subtler layers from within the space of your own body.
Makes sense.
The layer just beyond the physical is the etheric body. You can think of it as related to the personal unconscious. It's the first energy layer.
How is it structured?
It's built from energy pathways, like the meridians used in acupuncture. Organs also exist here as sort of radiation forms energetically. Now, some in conventional circles might dismiss this.
Right, like the old line, open up a body, you won't find meridians.
Exactly. Keys Rankins famously said that. But the philosopher's retort is perfect. If we open up your body, we won't find you anywhere, yet you feel you exist. Not everything vital is physically dissectable.
Great point. But, okay, how do we access it? Because often when people turn inward, the first thing they notice is just tension or pain.
Well, the key is relaxation and letting go. But, and this is crucial, you have to be willing to feel those tensions and pains.
Acknowledge them.
Yes. Often they're stored energy, unfulfilled potentials maybe, or just pent-up annoyances. Propval urgeness, as we say in Dutch, full of irritation. These can block meridians, like the gallbladder meridian, that's a common one, runs around the ears, eye corners, down the legs.
So feeling the tension is the first step.
Feeling it allows you to work with it. This etheric layer can actually function like a drainage route. You can consciously breathe into the tension, acknowledge it, and then exhale it downwards, letting it go, releasing it to the earth. Create space.
Okay, what's next?
Next is the emotional astral body. This one connects to Jung's collective unconscious. It's messier than the etheric. Not neat lines, but shifting phenomena, emotions, fascinations, fears.
The collective unconscious, that sounds vast.
It is. It's an ocean of images, forces. Think archetypes like snakes, powerful figures, avatars. But not all are pleasant or easy. And here's a caution. Engaging too much here without strong grounding, you can get overwhelmed, go a bit wild.
How so?
If your etheric body, your basic energy structure is weak, you're more vulnerable to impulses surging up from this collective layer. This can, frankly, contribute to psychiatric issues. You really need to be firmly established in the here and now, anchored.
Grounded. Okay.
Then we have the mental body, which has a strong connection to the heart. When this layer is clear, emptied of our own constant stream of thoughts.
The inner chatter.
Right. When that quiets down, it allows for full attention. Pure, loving, listening to another person, for instance. But most of us cloud this layer with our self-made thinking, projecting our ideas onto everything.
Can you give an example?
I knew an experienced yoga teacher once. After an exercise meant to warm the feet, she genuinely thought her feet were warm. She told herself they were.
Yeah.
But when I checked, blocks of ice.
Oh, wow.
It showed how living too much in the mental layer can create a kind of flight from physical reality, an inner division, disconnected.
That relates to really inhabiting the body, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So many people live in just a fraction of themselves. Maybe just the top half or the front, or one side more than the other. Sometimes as little as an eighth of their potential physical presence.
An eighth? That's tiny.
It is. Contrast that with, I once worked with an opera singer. She could breathe into her entire back. You could feel the space around her fill with her breath. That kind of diaphragmatic breath, it should feel roundabout, complete, expansive.
Filling the whole space.
Yes. And this links to the ancient alchemists. They searched for the lower stone, a point of transformation, in the space of the lower abdomen and pelvis. Breathing deeply there, creating a fusion of energy, initiates a purification process involving the whole body, all these layers. And that eventually leads to finding the second or higher stone in the mystical heart.
Fascinating. Are there more layers?
One more main one in this sequence. The spiritual or causal body. Imagine it as an oval shape surrounding the others. It contains a kind of blueprint for your life's path, your mission.
Your purpose.
In a way, yes. Learning to connect with it, to know it, is a real blessing. Now, some approaches, like those influenced by Alice Bailey, talk about destroying or emptying this body. I strongly disagree.
Why?
It needs to be integrated, purified through letting go, yes, but not destroyed. It provides intuitive impressions, a sense of direction. Not rigid plans, but gentle guidance.
Okay, so we have these 5 main bodies. Physical, etheric, emotional, astral, mental, spiritual, causal. What's the goal with them?
The goal is integration. Bundling these first 5 bodies into one radiating whole, right here, right now, that gives you that feeling of being a complete person.
And why is that integration so important?
Because a lack of harmony between these layers, that's a major source of fear, especially the fear of losing control.
Oh, okay.
You can only truly surrender, relax deeply, let go, when you feel energetically robust, grounded and integrated within yourself. And this process of letting go, transforming, it allows for what we call dying in the now.
Which isn't literal death.
Not at all. It's a conscious release of old patterns, old beliefs, outdated parts of yourself. It's a kind of rebirth into a more authentic presence.
Are there layers beyond these 5?
Yes, 2 more, which are essentially formless, unbounded.
Yeah.
The 6th is the cosmic body. Hetty Dreher called it the body of cosmic universal love. Pure, boundless compassion.
And 7th?
The nirvanic body, pure emptiness, pure space, what Buddhism calls sunyata. Radiant emptiness, living space. It's like the vast silent awareness within which everything else arises. Pure consciousness itself.
Wow, that's a journey. Is there a central principle guiding this integration?
Yes, the central healing guideline, you could say, the axis mundi, is that vertical flow through the spine.
This diet.
Taoists call it the pivot of Tao. In the West, it's sometimes the silver cord connecting us to incarnation. You hear about it in near-death experiences, how it retracts.
Does it?
Well, interestingly, if someone is truly dying, it retracts differently than if they're just having an NDE and returning. For a return, it apparently loops differently in the head, creating what Taoists call the heavenly turnstile.
Which looks like
what we might see as a halo. It allows an overview of your life, but you haven't actually fully disconnected yet.
amazing. So with all this energy work, are there different overall approaches?
Broadly, you could say 3. One is transcending, trying to find enlightenment or salvation purely in higher realms. The risk there is dissociation, disconnecting from earthly life.
Okay.
Second is circulating, focusing mainly on balancing energy flow within the body, like in many Chinese traditions.
The third.
The third, which is what we emphasize, is becoming transparent, making yourself permeable to the forces of both heaven and earth, allowing them to flow through you, integrating them.
Like a conduit.
Exactly. Imagine yourself as a sort of longish cloud that, through purification, becomes a sphere. You see this in icons of Christ during the Transfiguration. That's total transformation. Transfiguration.
That idea of integration, becoming whole, it connects to the concept of androgyny, doesn't it? Not gender, but uniting masculine and feminine within.
Absolutely. The Thomas Gospel talks about unifying above and below, inside and outside, and the masculine and feminine in us. It's core.
How does that relate physically?
Well, traditionally, the right side of the body is seen as masculine, active, thinking, yang. The left side is feminine, receptive, feeling, yin.
Right and left.
Hetty Dreher used to observe what she called half people, walking around Amsterdam people, living predominantly in one side, neglecting the other half of their being.
So the goal is unity.
Unity, bringing the halves together. We work with opening to what she called the Christ energy, a yang active energy flowing from the right side towards the left, like the sun moving towards the moon. It symbolizes that inner integration.
And that extends beyond the body.
Yes, it's also about uniting heaven, which is often seen as masculine, and earth, seen as feminine, bringing those polarities into harmony within yourself.
So if individuals undertake this huge inner transformation, becoming this new human, how does that actually help us collectively? How does it translate to building a new earth amid all the chaos?
Well, imagine a society built more on inner harmony and empathy, where ethical action arises naturally from inner insight, from that grounded place,
Rather than just following rules.
rather than just being driven by imposed norms or constantly seeking new organizational structures to fix things externally. It's what Eric Newman called a new ethics for a new world, born from within.
But there are huge challenges, like our relationship with nature.
Indeed. But inner guidance can help there too. For instance, some might interpret demographic shifts, like falling birth rates in some wealthy nations, not just economically, but perhaps as a complex, almost unconscious societal response to ecological pressure. A subtle signal from life itself. It's one perspective.
And what about dealing with people who seem completely closed off, dogmatic, unwilling to listen?
It's difficult. One approach, championed by the Jungian psychiatrist Sherman, is self-reflective group conversations. People listen deeply, offer authentic reactions, but without giving advice or criticism, just bearing witness.
And for those really shut down,
Sometimes simple physical touch and care can be vital. Therapeutic massage or haptonomy, which focuses on feeling and connection through touch, can be incredibly powerful for helping someone reconnect with themselves when they're deeply closed off.
it sounds like a lifelong process.
It absolutely is. Life is a continuous learning process. Letting go, becoming aware, opening up, transforming. Whether we consciously engage with it or resist it, it's happening. Sherman wrote something beautiful in his book, Perspective of the Soul. He said, roughly translated, "He who discovers his capacity to love discovers also why he finds joy in living, what he wants to do in this world, what he wants to express. He knows himself to be one with a creative life that is occupied with the creation of the true human."
That's powerful. Connecting love, joy, purpose to the creation of the true human. But how does this lofty ideal help us deal with, the sheer messiness of society right now, the collective chaos?
There's a great metaphor for that, actually, from the old Dutch comics Olivier B. Baumel and Tom Pose. They had a creature called a trottledrum.
The trottle drum.
Yes, it was a monster created purely by the fear of the townspeople, the trottles. They were scared, so they hid in holes. But their collective fearful movement out of the holes, seeking safety in numbers, literally formed the monster they were afraid of.
Wow. So they created the thing they feared.
Exactly. And you can see parallels with modern populism, perhaps. People driven by fear, maybe clinging to the past, can inadvertently give power to a collective monster that arises from their own shared anxieties.
That's sobering. So what's the antidote?
Well, solidarity. Recognizing solidarity is a very high value, moving beyond narrow group egoism or fear-based reactions, and fostering a truly constructive political discourse, meaning focusing on where we actually want to go as a society, what we want to build together, rather than just defining ourselves by what we're against. It requires vision, not just reaction.
This has been an incredibly rich deep dive. We've journeyed from Kundalini energy up through the layers of being, explored balancing our inner polarities, and seen how this radical spirituality isn't just personal navel-gazing, but fosters a grounded, empathetic way to engage with ourselves and the world. So as you sit with all this, maybe reflect on this question. What trottledrum, what collective fear monster might you be inadvertently feeding in your own life or perhaps in your community? And how could bringing more self-awareness, more inner harmony, help you start to transform it?
And perhaps hold on to this timeless wisdom. De zachte krachten zullen winnen in het eind. The soft forces, the gentle forces, they will ultimately prevail.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We really encourage you to explore these ideas further, maybe look into the work of Peter Comshare and the other thinkers we touched on today. Until next time.